Let's start with the scary and slowly work our way towards the ones that are basically hell on earth. Number 10. San Quentin State Prison. San Quentin State Prison is a maximum security facility in California and is one of the most notorious prisons in the world. Many well-known inmates have been incarcerated here, from Charles Manson to serial killers like the Night Stalker and the Freeway Killer, as well as numerous gang leaders. Now, what really makes this prison so terrifying is that anyone who comes in is heavily pressured to join a gang. Now, you don't really have the choice to choose which one. You just simply take a look at your skin and sort yourself accordingly. And if you're caught at the wrong place at the wrong time, well, you better hope to be an ethnically ambiguous person, giving you enough time to get into your fighting stance before getting shanked. The reason why this infamous prison sits at the very top of the list is simply because it has changed so much in recent years. Today, inmates can be found gardening, playing kickball, performing concerts, and taking yoga and art classes. There are also many educational programs to help inmates secure jobs once they're released, like plumbing courses, culinary programs, and coding classes, ensuring that they will be better off than most Americans. Number 9. San Pedro Prison. San Pedro Prison, located in La Paz, Bolivia, is one of the most unique and overcrowded prisons in the world. It was designed to house 600 inmates, but it currently holds around 3,000. This doesn't take into account the countless women and children who live within its walls, as many inmates choose to bring their families with them. Now, what makes this prison so unique is the fact that there are no guards or government officials inside. It's entirely governed by the inmates themselves. And honestly, it looks more like a neighborhood than an actual prison, just surrounded by a large wall. Police never enter and only guard the perimeter, deciding who can come in and out. The Bolivian police could actually care less about anything that happens inside the prison walls. They claim that it's a new and progressive way of running a prison, but it's obvious that they simply don't want to work. Now, interestingly enough, the boss of the prison is elected by the inmates. The boss then chooses his soldiers who will enforce the rules. The enforcers are easily spotted by their uniforms, wearing all black Adidas tracksuits, which I must admit is genius. Not only do the uniforms make them look professional, but they're also very practical, since you never know when a game of soccer could break out. But let's talk about what makes this prison so scary. The main problem here is the abundance of drugs, which are conveniently made in manufacturing labs inside the prison. It's estimated that as much as 60% of inmates are addicted to at least one. Coca leaves soaked in chemicals and cocaine are two of the most popular drugs abused, which can eventually lead to insanity. Not for the addict, but for anyone who has to suffer by listening to them. The two most common ways people die within the prison are either from drug overdoses or murder. Number 8. Bangkok Central Prison. Bangkok Central Prison is a maximum security prison located in Thailand. The prison houses inmates who are serving long sentences, typically 30 years or longer, life in prison, and those who are awaiting execution, since this is the only prison in the country that administers lethal injection. The majority of inmates are currently serving time for drug-related crimes. This includes many foreigners who had the genius idea of attempting to smuggle drugs out of the country, only to be caught in a place known for having some of the harshest penalties in the world for drug possession. In Thailand, drug smuggling can easily get you life in prison or even the death penalty. But let's talk about the prison and what makes it so scary. On arrival, new prisoners must get their legs chained and welded together. And if you don't have the bribe money for the blacksmith, the chains will be welded tighter than necessary, causing extreme discomfort, wounds, and infections. The chains must remain on for the first 3 months. After this period, the chains are removed by sawing off the inmate's legs. Just kidding, the chains are easily removed. Another reason why this prison is so awful is the food. Here, inmates receive 1 meal per day, a bowl of plain white rice. But if they're lucky enough, they might get a bowl of fish head soup, which isn't sufficient enough to meet nutritional needs. So inmates resort to capturing rats and eating them. Rat meat is so valuable that it serves as a form of currency in the prison. For example, a bowl of rat soup can be traded for cigarettes, snacks, Pokemon cards, or an entirely different meal. Guards excessively beating inmates and drug abuse is also very common inside the prison. Number 7. CECOT. CECOT in El Salvador is the largest prison in the Americas, currently housing around 15,000 inmates, but capable of holding up to 40,000. It houses two of El Salvador's most dangerous and illegal gangs, MS-13 and Barrio 18, which were easily captured since their affiliations were conveniently written on their faces. In the free world, the two gangs are engaged in a deadly war, killing each other without hesitation. But here, inside the prison, they're forced to live together and are expected not to cause a single problem. If they do, they are taken to solitary confinement, a dark isolation cell entirely made of concrete, where they will be left for a minimum of 15 days, but possibly much longer. So what makes this prison so scary, you might ask? Well, for starters, most of the prisoners will never be released. They're also not allowed visitors and will likely never step foot outside of the building again. However, they do get 30 minutes of exercise per day, but even that takes place inside the building, only a few steps away from their cell. But the most controversial and terrifying aspect of it all is that a small percentage of the prisoners are completely innocent and were never part of a gang to begin with. They were arrested by the police or military to meet their daily quotas. This has captured the attention of many large publications from around the world, but to this day, the issue remains unresolved. Number 6. Rikers Island. Rikers Island is the most violent and dangerous jail in the US. In 2022, there were 491 incidents of inmate-on-inmate stabbings and slashings. The jail is also ridiculously overcrowded and unsanitary, with inmates describing the living conditions as pure hell. But I'm just not buying it, since 42% of inmates quickly return to crime after their release, eager to get back to Rikers for an extended stay. Now, the reason why Rikers is so dangerous is simply because of its lawlessness. The prison often leaves entire units unsupervised. This is because on any given day, a third of the correctional officers either call out or don't show up at all, leaving inmates to run the units however they see fit. They have actually been caught admitting to running gambling rings and fight clubs, which really goes to show why they ended up in jail in the first place, since they can't even follow the first rule of their own club. But not only is this jail the most dangerous for inmates, it is also the most dangerous for correctional officers. In 2022, there were over 1,500 cases of assaults on officers and workers. That's an average of at least 4 per day, making this place pure hell for anyone who even steps into the building. Number 5. Black Dolphin Prison. Black Dolphin Prison is one of the most terrifying prisons in the world, only housing inmates that are serving life sentences. It is located at the edge of Siberia, Russia, near the border of Kazakhstan. Now, at first glance, you might confuse this prison with SeaWorld, seeing that there are multiple statues of dolphins outside the building. But that is a prison in the US. Here, inmates arrive blindfolded, and once inside the prison, they are quickly bent over. Chill, don't get too excited. They are then walked to their new cells. This is done to disorient the inmate, preventing them from memorizing the layout of the prison. So in the unlikely event that the inmate escapes from his cell, they will get lost in the labyrinth, encountering many puzzles and riddles. Each cell has 3 metal gates and is under 24/7 video surveillance. Once inside, inmates are required to stand all day long, approximately 16 hours per day. They cannot sit or lay down until it's time for bed. They do, however, get 90 minutes of outdoor activities, which of course just means that they are brought outside and placed inside of a slightly larger cage. The prison houses 700 of Russia's deadliest and most psychopathic criminals, who have a combined murder count of around 3,500 people, or an average of 5 murders per inmate. Number 4. ADX Florence. Easily the most terrifying prison in the US is ADX Florence, a maximum security prison located in Colorado's Rocky Mountains. This supermax prison only houses the most dangerous criminals in the world, such as the Unabomber, the Shoe Bomber, the disgusting Underwear Bomber, and of course, the drug kingpin El Chapo, just to name a few. Here, these inmates are kept locked in their cells in isolation for 23 hours a day. They're only allowed 1 hour of exercise per day inside of another steel cage. This, as you can imagine, can have a mental toll on prisoners, completely breaking them and leaving them with permanent psychological issues. Since the prison opened in 1995, there has never been an escape or even an attempt, as it is basically impossible. You see, the cells are entirely made of concrete, equipped with motion detectors and 24/7 video surveillance, all behind a steel door. Outside of the cells are 1,400 remotely controlled doors, pressure pads, and laser beams that detect any unauthorized movement. Outside, you will find tall perimeter fences topped with multiple rows of razor wire and more motion detectors. Then, of course, there are the countless sniper towers that watch over the entire compound, eagerly awaiting for their chance at target practice. Then finally, there are multiple entry and exit points that are heavily guarded. In short, there is no way out, and inmates know it, which only adds to the feeling of dread and hopelessness, making this not only a physical prison, but also a mental one. Number 3. Diyarbakir Prison. Diyarbakir Prison in Turkey has to be one of the most sick and twisted prisons on earth. The prison has a long history of torture and psychological abuse against its prisoners. As early as the 1980s, there were thousands of reports of torture and over 100 deaths attributed to it. But I'll just cover some of the most common methods that were used, or else we'd be here all day. Prisoners endured severe beatings, were stripped naked, blindfolded and hosed with high-pressure water. They were placed in isolation cells for days, starved, hung by their arms, and forced to stand for long periods. They also received electric shocks, burnings, and the extraction of healthy teeth and nails, as well as having their limbs crushed. But perhaps one of the strangest torture methods involved the captain's dog, which was trained to bite the genitals of naked prisoners. Then there was the psychological torture, like the one they called the disco. Every new prisoner was thrown into the prison sewers and would be left there for several hours. Now, thankfully, today most of these torture methods are no longer in use, but some remain. They've just gotten better at covering them up. Reports continue to emerge of prisoners being tortured, beaten, and forced to live in inhumane conditions inside cells that are infested with cockroaches and disease. Number 2. Antananarivo Prison. While some prisons are notorious for their violence or psychological torment, Antananarivo Prison in Madagascar is terrifying for its overcrowding and disgusting living conditions. The prison was built to house around 800 inmates, but today it holds around 4,000. As you can imagine, diseases and bacteria run rampant here, with visitors stating that you will smell the place before you ever see it. Now, when I say that the place is overcrowded, I'm not just talking about the inmates. The prison is completely infested with cockroaches, rats, lice, and fleas, with the majority of prisoners completely covered in bites from head to toe. Once 5 p.m. strikes, prisoners must enter their cells for the night, which are just small rooms with a connecting toilet shared by all the inmates. The door is locked from the outside, and the room's temperature can quickly surpass 100 degrees. The majority of inmates sleep on the floor, tightly packed like sardines. They are actually so close together that no one can turn around. But every so often, someone will clap a few times, and the entire row of inmates will turn simultaneously to sleep on the opposite side. But hold on, just as you think it couldn't get any worse, it somehow does. Any prisoner who causes trouble is quickly thrown into one of the isolation chambers, called the hellhole. The room's floor is completely covered in human feces, urine, rat carcasses, and trash, living up to its name. And thanks to the large rat problem in the prison, outbreaks of the Black Plague are common and have killed many prisoners throughout the years. Number 1. Camp 14. Kwang Prison, also known as Camp 14, is located in North Korea and is absolutely terrifying. In every prison in the world, criminals usually end up there because they committed a crime. But Camp 14 is very different. Here, there are 40,000 prisoners condemned to a lifetime of hard labor. And the sad part is that many of them are women and children, including children as young as toddlers, who never broke the law. Their only mistake was that they were related to a person who committed a political crime. This can be anything from criticizing the regime, attempting to escape from the country, practicing a prohibited religion, or even showing any behavior that is seen as disloyal to the regime. Conditions in the camp are atrocious. Starving prisoners resort to eating raw frogs, mice, rats, snakes, worms, squirrels, and even grass. But if the prisoner is caught eating any other food than the food that they are given, they can be shot on the spot. Starvation is one of the most common ways people die in the camps, which is one of the worst ways to go out. First, their teeth begin to loosen and shake before eventually falling out. The person's bone structure deteriorates, and their entire body swells with water, a condition known as edema. Ultimately, the person inevitably dies. Dying from diseases is also very common. Prisoners can contract pellagra, tuberculosis, hepatitis, gastric disorders, and even develop frostbite from the freezing temperatures. And for prisoners that can no longer take it anymore and end up taking their lives, even that will carry a punishment. If that person had any relatives working at the camp, they will be punished for what they did. So let's cover some of the most common punishments that are used in the camp. Brutal beatings, stress positions, and isolation cells are all used. But if the officers are not in the mood, firing squad executions can come without warning. Now, the crazy part is that Camp 14 is just one of many political prison camps in North Korea, and it's estimated that there are around 200,000 prisoners living and working in these camps right now.